All right, it's Wednesday. Hope you're off to a good start on game week 10. We're going to get you going with game week 11 prep. Full month now of data in the books. We are through April. Stats this morning have been updated through April 30th. We're going to check out the projected starting pitcher grid and update the sheet as we go. Talk you through the starting pitchers for game week 11. And then I'll run you through some of the hot hitters you're going to want to target this weekend. As always, these videos are brought to you by my Patreon subscribers. Thanks to all of you. If you'd like to join us, get the full projection sheet access. The link's going to be below. All right, so once we've inputted all the stats through yesterday's games, this is my normal Wednesday procedure. We're going to go through the park factors, strikeout factor, and opposing lineup factor for every pitching staff. Lots of screens open here, but we're going to take a look at each team's staff for the upcoming weekend. I'm going to go through and do all this so you don't have to sit here and watch it. But I just want to show you one staff to kind of give you an idea of what we're doing here. This page tells us who the starters are projected to be for this coming weekend, game week 11. We're just going to do Arizona. I have Gallen, Slade, Ciccone, and Brandon Pfaadt. So once these are confirmed and in bold type, they will be green. As projected starters, I put them in yellow. Next thing we look at is the park factor. Arizona is versus San Diego, which means they're playing at home. We find the Diamondbacks ballpark, which is Chase Field. You can see that Chase Field is a 99, so a very slight lean toward a pitcher's park, but that is a small advantage. We're just going to add 1 percentage point to each Arizona pitcher's projection this week. Next, we're going to look at strikeout factor. So they're facing San Diego. If we check out the league average for strikeout rate right now, it's 22.7. San Diego is 21.2, so about 1.5 points lower than league average around these. So I'm going to round that 1.5 up to 2. We're going to knock off 2% because they're facing a lineup that doesn't strike out a lot. This is one of the main differences between traditional fantasy baseball and Sorare. Strikeouts are really heavily weighted in Sorare, so you really want pitchers who are going to get a lot of strikeouts. You want hitters who are not going to strike out a lot. Since San Diego is 2 ticks below the league average, we're just going to take off 2 percentage points from each Arizona starter. And then we want to look at the opposing lineup. How do they hit overall? And for this, we use xwOBA. We're going to find San Diego. We're going to see that they are a 331 xwOBA. The league average is 319. And so again, we're rounding. So for every 10 points of xwOBA that we have above or below the league average, we make an adjustment to the projection. In this case, San Diego is a slightly above average hitting team, so we're going to take 1 percentage point away from those Arizona pitchers. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and do this for every team, and when I get done, we will be back to go over some analysis. Park factors, strikeout factors, opposing lineup factors, all calculated for all the teams now. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to sort and give you the top starters for this week. So anybody who's highlighted is at least projected to start. So and all my subscribers get commenter access. You can sort everything. When you sort, you just click this box in the upper left. Go to sort range. You can sort it by whatever category you want. We just want the total projection here. That's going to be column AA. And we want the top, so we want to search it by Z to A, so it puts the big number first. You're just looking for the guys who are highlighted. Ranger Suarez, 5-0. Top projected this week. Sonny Gray, great matchup for him. Both of those guys are already confirmed. Tanner Houck, Skubal, like either of them. Lodolo, I'm a little hesitant on because he's facing Baltimore and he's pitching in Cincinnati, which is a pretty tough park to pitch in, but coming off a couple great strikeout games for him, he's always got the upside. Blanco, Gilbert, Glasnow have all been good to start the season. Jared Jones, I still don't think has any cards. And then Aaron Nola. So these are going to be your top arms for this weekend. I'm going to go ahead now and move all my projections for park factor, strikeout factor, opposing lineup factor over to relievers, and I will show you how we organize those. All right, so when we're choosing a relief pitcher, we got to look at a couple of things. First of all, this is a relief appearances column. Tells us how many times a particular pitcher has come into a game. Of course, you get 5 points for every relief appearance. I've ported over all my park factors, strikeout factor, and lineup factors, so we have the same analysis that we're using for the starters. I have a per relief appearance projection for each reliever. You can hopefully assume that your reliever is going to make at least 1 appearance per game week. See, some appear more than others, and that's why we have the RP rank. And the RP rank basically takes the per game projection and multiplies it by how many times they've come into a game. That kind of gives us a good feel for who the best relievers have been. So some guys obviously have a higher per appearance number, but if they've only played in 3 games, you don't want that guy. So the rank gives you a better idea of who you really want. It does have some faults. Johan Duran returned yesterday for Minnesota. He's going to be their closer. He's one of the best closers in the league when he's healthy, and pitched last night, 19.5 points. but only the one game, so he's obviously not going to be high in your ranks. So you'll have to watch kind of with injuries who's coming back. But if we were to sort, so again, you'd click this box in the upper left. We're looking at column A, B here. We're sorting range, advanced, finding A, B, and then again, we want it Z to A, so put the top guys at the top. And we scroll all the way up to the top. Based on statistics through the first month of the season, Ryan Helsley has been your best closer. Emmanuel Clase, Clay Holmes, Jason Foley, Mason Miller, all up near the top. Barlow's interesting. So he only has one save, but he's been in so many games. He's had so many holds. You're getting a high leverage guy who isn't a closer in your top 10 of your RP rankings, which is pretty interesting, I think. So this is some of the things the sheet can do for you. You can get a look at like Jojo Romero here in St. Louis. Obviously, he's their top setup man. He's been in 14 games and he's got 10 holds. But you're looking for strikeouts. Barlow, a high strikeout guy. Mason Miller, just insane. More than 2 strikeouts per inning. Only 11 appearances because the A's are terrible, but when he gets in the game, he is dominant. As far as game week 11 is concerned, Helsley, Clase, Holmes, Foley, and Miller look like your top projected. Now, of course, you can also use starting pitchers who have that RP eligibility. I like to do that because it at least guarantees you some points during the weekend. There will be times when you throw an RP out there, you throw a Helsley out there, he's the best one projected and he just doesn't throw at all. The game script dictates that he doesn't come into the game and then you're left with a 0 in that RP slot. Whereas if you would have played a starter, say a Michael King, a Tanner Houck card that has RP eligibility. All right, before we look at some hitters, I'm going to go ahead and update the park factors for the hitters, and I'm going to look at the ex-WOBA allowed by the opposing pitching staff that each of these hitters is going to be facing. So we'll get that all updated, and I'll be back with some hitter recommendations for this weekend. So I've gone through, I put in the park factors and the opposing pitching staff numbers for every hitter. A couple different things you need to look at here. Obviously, we can sort by total projection if you want to get the top hitters. When you're putting in your own lineups, though, you kind of have to look at days since last appearance. That's over here. If you've got a high number, I'd say anything more than a 2, you got to be real leery of playing that person. Obviously, Alek Thomas has been out most of the season. He's been out. He hasn't played in 30 days, so you can kind of ignore him. Geraldo Perdomo, same thing. I update this daily. This will reset every day. You see a 0, that means they played yesterday. You see it 1, maybe they had a day off. Maybe the team just didn't play yesterday. Generally, anything bigger than 1 means they're not an everyday player, so I avoid those. You're looking for the 0. Also important to look at games played, so I've color-coded all these. Expected plate appearances is obviously really important. I'm going off the assumption that all these players are going to play the max games for their teams in this game week. Some weeks, obviously, the Monday through Thursday slates, teams will have 4 games, and some will have 3. But it'll be up to you to make these decisions as to who you want to start. You just do not want DNPs, obviously. You want everyday players, so you're looking at total games. You're looking at people who are sitting out. See who our top picks are for this week. Let's take a look. Again, we're going to select everything. Data sort range advanced. AK is our projection column, so we want Z to A. And again, here's where you'd have to take a look and be a little introspective. So Josh Young started the year on fire and then got hurt. He hasn't played in 29 days. Royce Lewis played the season opener, 2 at-bats, hit a homer, singled, looked great, and then pulled his hamstring, and he hasn't played in 33 days. So let's just move those guys out of the way based on total of 2024, so the first month of the season. CJ Abrams has burst into the top spot here. Great matchup this weekend. Toronto is the worst pitching staff in the league. He's playing at home, which is a good hitter's park. Bumps him slightly ahead of Ellie De La Cruz. 38.31. So CJ Abrams, guy's turning into a star, a 23-year-old. He steals bases. He hits homers. Looks like the real deal to me. Ellie De La Cruz has obviously been awesome. Gunnar Henderson, Mookie Betts. Here's another one. Christian Yelich, been out for 18 games. Don't want to start him until he gets back. Cole Tucker, we want to look at how many games played. He's only played 2 games, so he's had 2 pretty good games. But he's only played 2 games. I don't think I'd trust him. He's been a career minor leaguer. Marcell Ozuna, Bobby Witt, Tyler O'Neill, all the usual suspects here. But this will give you an idea of who you want to start. And now I'm going to go over how you can make your own lineup based on your gallery. We have another tool for that. I'll show you that right now. So another thing you get with your $5 a month Patreon subscription is access to a worksheet to help you work out which decisions you want to make based on your own personal gallery. I have tabs at the bottom for SPs, RPs, corners, middles, and outfielders. We'll start with the pitchers. First thing I always do is alphabetize. So we're just going to do that sort range again. We're just going to use column A to Z. We're just going to put them in alphabetical order. And then I'm going to go back to the main sheet, do the same thing. All right, and the first thing over on my worksheet that I want to do is I want to make sure I'm highlighting the players who are actually starting. So I've gone ahead and highlighted all my pitchers that are throwing this weekend. And then I like with pitching to put some weight on what they've done this year, what they've done in previous seasons. So I have all those tabs for you at the bottom of the main page. So starting in 2024, Austin Gomber, based on this week's projections and extenuating factors, I have a 13.77. Looking at last year, he was a 15.96 for an average start. And going back to 2022, 13.22. Each card obviously has an XP bonus. You can input your XP bonus in the form of 1 point, whatever the XP bonus is. So if it's 6%, it's 1.06. The total is basically the average of anything you put in the 2024, 2023, or 2022 columns. So some players obviously will go back to 2022. Some players are rookies and they don't have any information. So if you only have information for a couple of the years, the average just takes the average of what you have. It'll multiply then by XP bonus and it'll give you a projection. So once we go through all these, we'll sort them, and then I'll show you what my results are. We're back. Everything's updated for my starting pitchers, and sort by my total, which is column F. So Sonny Gray is going to be my top pitcher this week. Gilbert, Lodolo, Fetty, Gausman. So I can go ahead and prioritize where I want to use these pitchers. First thing I'd have to do is figure out what competition I want to prioritize. I don't have a lot of in-season cards, so generally I've been doing AL and NL as my top priorities. But this gives you an idea of who you're going to want to use based on this year's stats and then how they've done over the previous 2 seasons. So for a guy like Gausman, who has struggled this year, but obviously has a track record of being really good, it bumps his projection up a little bit. For a guy like Gray, who's pitched so well this year, but his average starts over the last couple of years have been a little bit lower, it'll bring him down just a bit. I've just updated entering all my information for 2024 to get that up to date. And now when I look through my relief pitching tab, I've actually moved starting pitchers who have reliever eligibility over to my starting pitcher tab. So you see Michael King, Jordan Hicks, Tanner Houck. So I'll obviously be using these guys in some of my relief pitching spots because I'm going off of 1 relief appearance. Jason Foley is my best reliever. He's an in-season card, so I'll probably be using that in limited champ. But Munoz at 13.95. I'd rather have Houck as a starter, who I project at 26.75. In the NL, Jordan Hicks projects at 23.46, so still well ahead of any reliever with 1 appearance. So rather than take the chance that I will just start the starter in that reliever spot. Could start Michael King as well. Everything's shaded in this light pinkish red color. These are guys that either haven't thrown enough innings or are currently injured or are no longer in the league. So it just gives me a little easier way to check what I actually have available and what I don't. All right, so I'll show you some hitter projections and how I use those, and then we'll wrap for today. So for my hitters, I have a little different setup. We have the L15 tab, which tells us who's hot, who's not in the last 2 weeks or so. Then we have the 2024 full season stats, 2023 and 2022 for those who are qualified statistically. And so when we look at this, we see that William Contreras, although he was really hot to start the year, and he's still 31.66 if we look at all of 2024, has cooled recently, 23.79 over the last 2 weeks. Put that in with his 2023 stats of 23.38, and it'll give us a number of 28.12. So he's still going to be my top ranked corner infielder. But what this does is it just gives you numbers to use as projections to see who your top plays are going to be based on their numbers. 25% based on the last 15, 25% based on the full season, and then 25 on each of the last 2 seasons for those that qualify. I think this is a great way to handle hitting because you really want those hot bats in your lineup. Hitters are streaky. They'll go through cold stretches. They'll go through hot stretches. You want to try to find them when they're going in the hot stretches and get those guys in your lineup. This will give you an idea who your hottest hitters are. Let's say you just wanted to play the hot hitters. You could actually take these other projections out. Well, let's look at a guy I'm not using right now. So Gio Urshela is hurt. Let's say we just wanted to use what he's been doing recently. So we could just take out his 2024 and his 2022 numbers. It takes only what's been inputted in these boxes, and it will multiply it by the XP bonus of the card and then spit out a projection. So if you just want to use the L15s, you can just go to this tab over on the main sheet. You can find their projection over the last 15 games and use that. All right, well, thanks for sticking through this. Again, if you want to subscribe, hit me up on the Patreon. I'll put a link in the show notes. Best of luck in game week 11.